Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Victorian final of the Australian Poetry Slam. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Shout out to everyone on YouTube who is watching the stream over in that land. Make sure you get those chats going, get the comment, all the things that you want. All of the poets today do have the YouTube link, so they will be hopping in after they perform to make sure that you're all talking about how much you love their poem. My name is Andy Stewart. I will be your host for this evening. We have 14 poets competing tonight for the title of Victorian Slam Champion, and the top two will be going through to the Australian Poetry Slam National Final. Before I go ahead, I think we're about to share a little slide for you. Please bear with us as I just check the technical side on this side of the Zoom. As I said, I am very excited. I've seen a lot of these poets compete in the heats this year. Seen a lot of them come through, shine their words for us. So I think you're all in for a treat. Just to begin, on behalf of the State Library of Victoria, I would like to acknowledge the traditional lands of all the Victorian Aboriginal clans and their cultural practices and knowledge systems. We and the library and Word Travels recognise that our collections hold traditional cultural knowledge belonging to Indigenous communities in Victoria and around the country. We support communities to protect the integrity of this information gathered from their ancestors in the colonial period. We pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and welcome any and all members of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community who are with us in the Zoom and on YouTube. I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri land of the Kulin Nation. I want to acknowledge that there has never been a treaty reached and sovereignty was never ceded. The sovereignty of this land is of the Aboriginal community. This land was and always will be Aboriginal land. Yeah, the poets in my end of the Zoom are all commenting the land that they're from. So on the YouTube, chuck in the comments where you're coming from, what land you're hailing from. So as I said, my name is Andy Stewart and I am a poet. I've got wine in my veins instead of blood. Sorry, I'm going to start that again. I've got wine in my veins instead of blood, and I've got rage in my lungs instead of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So I breathe it in and I let my words fly. And if I rhyme, you'll think I matter. And if I shout, you'll think I'm valid. I'm seeking validation from crowds of strangers armed with whiteboards who give their high scores to the poets with the quickest flow, because the faster we speak, the less you understand us and the less it will trigger your guilt. I am a poet. We wake every morning with the poverty line rising high above our bank accounts. We walk to work avoiding the eyes of pristine businessmen, and then we take their order and we make their coffee all the time. In our minds, we're writing poetry, searching for the right words that we can say slowly enough to make you hear us, to make you see us. We are poets. Please believe us. Poetry. Are we all ready for some poetry? I can see on my side, everyone's getting keen. All of the poets are starting to get a little nervous, but in that right way, that gets them amped up, ready to bring their very best selves to the stage. So as we know, this is a poetry slam, and poetry slams tend to have a couple of different rules and regulations. So a little bit of housekeeping first. Normally I do tell y'all to keep yourselves muted during the Zoom, but as you're on YouTube, you can make as much noise as you like. The poets here, they've already had the rundown of keeping themselves muted and all of that. So we have 14 poets today. Now, each of these 14 poets are going to perform a 2-minute original piece that they haven't performed at any heats this year. This 2-minute original piece must be performed with no props, costumes, or music. Apart from that, it's pretty much a free-for-all. We'll just give a heads up, a little bit of a blanket content warning. Often slam poetry does attract themes that can be quite confrontational, potentially triggering for audience members. There might be coarse language, some dark themes, lots of potential for little moments. But all of the poets will, if they need to, they will give specific content warnings before their poems. And the content warnings are not counted in the time, but everything else is counted in the time. So I said that the poets have 2 minutes to perform their piece. This includes any introduction, any miming. If the miming looks like performance, we will start the time the moment we see the poet start performing. Now, at 1:50 on our side, the poets will get a little bit of a warning. And then if they hit 2 minutes and 1 second, they will lose 1 point. If they hit 2 minutes and 31 seconds, they will lose another point, and so on and so forth every 30 seconds. However, I think if the poets tend to hit like maybe 4 or so minutes, we may have to pull a little bit of cane out and hook them off stage. Apart from that, there aren't that many rules, but we do have a very, very fabulous scoring system here at the Australian Poetry Slam. And that is that we have picked 5 random people to be our judges. Now, how does the judging work, you ask? Well, I have the answer for you. After each of the poets perform, each of my judges will hold a big piece of paper up to their screens with a score out of 10. Now, this score out of 10 will have 1 decimal point, as we like to give our backstage crew a little bit of maths, but not too much, just enough that they probably don't need a calculator. Now, out of these 5 scores, the top and the bottom score will be taken off because we don't want any bias, just in case your sister or your partner or your ex or any of combination of human relationships is one of the judges. That sentence didn't make sense, but you get the idea. The top and the bottom scores will be taken off, and then the 3 middle scores will be collated for the entire score out of 30. If we do have a draw at the end of the event for first or second place, we will do a slam off, which is where we get the two poets who have tied to present another poem, bit of a sudden death kind of situation. But yes, the judges all have their pieces of paper and their pens ready. But what we're going to do before we get right into the poetry, because I don't want to talk your ear off too much. I know you're all keen to hear the poets. But for a little bit of practice for the judges, to give them a little bit of a test run, what we're going to do is have a sacrificial poet. So what happens here is I'll get a poet up onto stage. I'm very excited to hear them perform. Get a poet up onto stage. They're going to do a sacrificial poem. So they're going to do a new piece that not many of you have heard before. After they have performed, the judges will give a score out of 10 each, and that'll work as a bit of a benchmark for them. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to your Zoom screens the sacrificial poet for today, Andy Stewart. Thanks, Andy. You're so welcome, Andy. Now, before I get into this, judges, there's another reason we do the sacrificial poet, and that is because there's this thing called score creep. Now, if you've ever participated in a slam before, you know that score creep is it's not fun. What happens essentially is that judges, at the very beginning of the event, we like to be very logical and think about our scoring, have lots of different criteria. And then as the event goes on, and the adrenaline starts to kick in and we get more and more excited because it's poetry and we love poetry, the scores start creeping up a little bit. And it's not that the poets don't deserve the scores, but more so that it ends up it ends up giving the later poets a little bit of preferential treatment. So the sacrificial poem, that's a bit of a benchmark to stop the score creep. I'm a bit annoyed that I didn't say that before because I really liked my little announcement there. I thought it was quite fun. I won't do it again though. Are we ready for the sacrificial poem? I'm hoping that on the YouTube you're all saying yes, because this side we are. Little content warning in this one for finances, medicine, and Scott Morrison. I spend $100 a month on medication. It keeps me alive. It keeps me from being nothing but a comatose potato. It keeps me eating something other than potato, packaged in a flimsy foil, salt-stained, family value-sized pack of arteries that really ought to be clogged by now. I take 4 pills in the morning and 3 pills at night. If I miss my morning meds, my mind dematerializes and I am left alone in a vast, empty chasm of my soul, empty chasm of my skull, empty chasm of my serotonin receptors set to self-destruct in a dizzying countdown to a 5 p.m. pharmacy dash. Buy a bottle of water from the glass door cabinet at the counter, down your meds round the corner, drag your sorry body home and hope that tomorrow doesn't come too soon. If I miss my nighttime nightcap of medicine, I do not sleep until 6 a.m. The dark drags over my mind. I turn on my bedside lamp for what feels like the 20th time tonight. Its bright light burns at the edge of my dinner plate pupils, blown out by the flashback, playing on repeat in the back of my mind, in the back of my memory, in the back of my sympathetic nervous system set to self-destruct if I don't wake up before I fall asleep. I spend $100 on medication every month. My classic cocktail of prescription disability is not listed in the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. I go to the government and I ask him for help. He says no, he cannot afford my body. The government buys a submarine. I buy groceries once a fortnight. I do not buy vegetables. I cannot afford them. A single avocado sits alone in a dusty fruit bowl, next to the shadow of an orange I forgot to allow myself to eat last week. I order pizza. I do not eat the avocado. It is too precious to spend on this empty hunger, on this empty heartache, on this empty hope, holding on by the tip of its 2-minute noodle safety net. Next fortnight, I buy a banana instead. I only buy groceries once every 2 weeks. Fresh food is not permitted in the welfare system. I go to the government and I ask him for help. He says no, he cannot afford my body. The government spends $90 billion on a submarine. I spend $150 a month on private health insurance. I will spend $150 12 times, so I'll spend $1,800 so that after the 12-month waiting period, I can spend $10,000 on a life-changing surgery that really shouldn't be so shit house expensive. Apparently, my tits are a pre-existing condition. My heart-crushing dysphoria is a pre-existing condition. The utterly entrenched medical transphobia in this blood-soaked patriarchal colonization of a country is a pre-existing condition set to self-destruct the moment enough of us show the fuck up for all the bodies fucked over by... I spend $150 a month on private health insurance. Because I spend $150 a month on private health insurance, I only have to spend $100 a month on medication. Otherwise, I'd spend $200. You got to spend money to make money, right? Slip a little loophole like a lasso around the systematic evaporation of wealth, sucked up into a Willy Wonka chocolate factory style feeding tube, leading to the carnivorous giants of Jack and the Beanstalk, the carnivorous multinational corporations slobbering at the tits of the carnivorous white men standing at the helm of I go to the government and I ask him for help. The government spends $90 billion on a submarine. He says no. The government spends international capital on a fucking submarine. I ask him for help. The government spends 2 years of our lives on a motherfucking submarine. He says no. He says he cannot afford this fucking war he wants to walk into with his fuckboy white man carnivorous conditioning to consume every single fucking thing he can. Send in the good men. Send in the real men. The able-bodied, red-blooded, hot-headed, heterosexual, hierarchical circle jerk of a fucking conscripted citizenship king. Send him off to another godforsaken, utterly unaffordable war. The government comes to me and he asks me for help. I say no, he cannot afford my body. All right, thank you, Andy Stewart, for giving us that sacrificial poem. I hope you all on the YouTube are commenting about all the bits that you loved about his piece. While you're all digesting that, I will get my judges. This is your time to shine. This is your first chance to do your job. I'll get you to write down your scores on your pieces of paper, scores out of 10 with 1 decimal point, and I will get them up onto my screen in 3, 2, 1. Pop them up for me. All right, I have a 7.2, a 7.6, a 7.7, a 7.9, and an 8.3. And Andy, I hope you don't take those scores personally. Oh, I won't, Andy. I know it's all fun and games in the slam. This is all just a big trick to get you to come along to a poetry reading. All right, enough about me. Are we ready for some poetry? I'm hoping that you're getting excited. I want that energy coming up. Are we ready for our very first poet? I'm going to randomly draw from a little thing over here. The very first poet of the Victorian final of the Australian Poetry Slam. Please put as much noise as you can into your laptop as possible for Adonna. Let's get a quick mic check from you, Adonna.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Oh, good.
Okay, thanks. Can I just begin? Our world is not a perfect one. It is a truth we try to run from, but when all is said and done, it remains. Our world is not a perfect one. It is a truth that is hard to face, let alone embrace. It is one that echoes in my head. It is the creature underneath my bed. Some think it does not exist, but it does. So why do we still resist? Our clock never fails in its ticking, and to life's destination, we are rapidly sprinting. Why do we run? Perhaps if we had it all, if we just had the untarnished image, the perfect facade, the immaculate existence, our world would finally be a truly faultless one. Let me tell you, it would not. It would not, because everyday lives end and time is not the perpetrator. It would not, because there are lines between you and I, invisible or not, we both see them. It would not, because we are a divided people who struggle to see the color that is diversity. It would not, because this is our kaleidoscopic world. It is filled with the boldness of color, the angles of shape, the shards of glass, the good and the bad, the transparent and opaque. Our kaleidoscopic world dares to bear it all. But too often we find that the patterns of people clash. My beauty is not yours, or maybe it's that your beauty is not mine. Maybe my kaleidoscope's shades of red, while yours is yellow. You're my fellow human. That's what's most important. Our very essence is the same, our love, needs, and fear. We are scared of the unknown, of powers we do not know, but we are not alone. And this is the secret of our kaleidoscopic world. Our world is not a perfect one. It is something far, far greater. It is a changing one. If we would just turn our kaleidoscope, the picture would change. Now mine's yellow and yours is red. And we finally see that we are all the same.
Give it up for Adonna and her poem. On this side, the poets are going off with their hands wiggling. YouTube, make sure you're popping all of those comments in there for Adonna to check out, to just let her know how much you loved her poem. While you're doing that, judges, it's your time. I'll get you to write down your scores out of 10 with 1 decimal points and put them up to the screens in 3, 2, 1. Pop them up for me. All right, I have a 7.5, a 7.8, a 7.9, an 8.1, and an 8.7. Let's wiggle those hands around again. Applaud the poet, not the scores. It's all about the poetry here at the APS. Ah, brilliant. Do you know what I have for you, audience? I have another poet. How incredible is that? Are we ready for our next competitor in the Victorian Heats? Please. Poets, put your hands up to the screen. Make some silent noise for the second poet of the competition. Give it up for Tutulu.
Ora Salafalava. I'm Tutulu. I'd like to pay my respects to the people of this land that I'm on as a guest, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. It's a privilege to write and grow on the sacred country. I was sung back into revival, the remains of my pulse gathered up in cupped palms of honourable ancestors, fluent in the language of care. After the unearthing, after the rubble was cleared and vines grew in the spaces that once occupied air, they discovered the place where my voice had lived was wrapped up, dormant in protection. The greens of the leaves had since soothed the marred insides of my throat. Suppression seemed to have sunken into the soil in my lungs, the alkaline earth alive in her alchemy. Underground, I heard the earth's heartbeat, speaking of the natural flow of sunflowers turning to seed. There, I slowly let the warmth in, until I remembered the sun of his embrace, the sound of our laughter wrapping around the fale twice over, and seeing the wind breathe the clouds open into strands of sunny sunlight lit against bright blue. I slowly let the warmth in, until I felt the joy hum through the map of my veins, until I had harvested enough grit to face my ngaluenga marked in the tapestry. I chose to trust that there was a fortitude awaiting activation in my being to navigate the oceans of grief, mountaintops of joy, because it was in my blood, this life, my birthright. Salafalava.
Give it up for Tutulu and their brilliant poem. I've got a lot of hands wiggling over this side. YouTube, make sure you're popping all of those comments for the poets to check out after they've performed. Brilliant. It's very hard to stay objective in this hosting role, but I am going to be doing my best. That is why we have the judges. Judges, it's your turn. I'll get those scores out of 10 with 1 decimal point for Tutulu's poem up in 3, 2, 1. Pop them on my screen for me. All right, I'll get you. Just creep that score up a little bit, Georgia, so I can see it. Brilliant. I have a 6.9, a 7.2, a 7.4, an 8.0, and an 8.8. Let's get another big round of applause for our poet. Applaud the words, not the numbers. Ah, brilliant. Excellent. This is going swimmingly. No technical difficulties. No awkward pauses. How brilliant. I love poetry. Are we ready for the next performer? I hope you are, because they're coming whether you want them or not. Please give it up for the next competitor of the slam. Put your hands up for Harpreet.
Just going to give a content warning. This poem talks about, this poem has mental health themes, and it talks about, eating disorders. So I'm just going to give that warning. Bright as a phoenix soaring through the sky. insignificant to those given the chance to soar while I'm stuck here on the floor. Flying was never a distant dream, bones hollow and dainty, mind, stomach, and spirit empty. I could fly away at any moment. After all, the euphoria hidden beneath starvation was salvation. When I say I need help, they say we need yours. I say I'm ill and they say I'm a success story. Since I have an eating disorder when I'm not already thin to begin with, I'm an inspiration. If I was already thin to begin with, then there would have been an intervention. My mother calls me a genius. My mind is a calculator. When I see an apple, I only see a 5K. When I eat, I can only taste numbers. Doesn't being a genius feel great? Mother said I'm good with ratios, which is true. The number of cuts on my wrist is proportional to the calories I eat in one day. Mother said I'm crazy. I had two voices in my mind. One is my own and the other is the one of my murderer, the one who kills me on the inside, the one who makes me think I'm still in control of my life. The manic high of control eroding my life, burning bits and pieces of me away slowly. When I was a child, I wanted to be a doll. I could always feel a music box scratching the back of my throat, a broken music box. I wonder that maybe if I reach back far enough, I can fix it. So every night I go into the bathroom and fill the bathtub with debris and try to fix it. Bright as the phoenix that I've become, soaring through the sky. Before my fuel burns out and I'm reduced to ash, the voice tells me to stop eating for good, and this time, I listen. As my fuel finally extinguishes, I push once more to crawl back to that ardent glory before I pass away, burning away my scrambled story and feeling myself no more. I shrivel to ash, burnt out, shriveling away to ash. I am burnt out.
Give it up for Harpreet and his poem, Put Your Hands Up. YouTube, I hope you're wiggling your fingers on the keyboard, popping all those comments on there. Brilliant poetry. All right, judges, you know what you're doing by this point. We're getting very good at this, getting a nice little relationship happening, aren't we? I'll get those scores up on my screen in 3, 2, 1. Pop them up there for me. Brilliant. I have an 8.2, an 8.3, a 7.7, a 9.1, and a 9.5. Let's get another big round of support for Harpreet. Applaud those words. That's 3 down, 11 more to go. I'm riding this high. I'm having a great time. Are we ready for the next performer of the evening? I hope you are, because you're about to hear words from the very next competitor. Please welcome them to your screen. It's Aya.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. There's a boy sitting across the street who's just like me and you. He's the same in almost every way. The only difference is that he's forced to sit on the street for no reason but his family. We see it before our very own eyes and we recognize how wrong it is. But yet we fail to act and we let him starve. Why is it that this small difference makes us treat him like a disease, to be removed without any mercy? There's an easy way to help him, to walk up to him and to help him learn. There are people that want to help him escape from the horrible cage that we somehow call homelessness. But it's so much more than that. Each one of these people have stories to tell, and none of them can be summed up in words. Some may have been abused or pushed out of jobs, and then trapped in an unforgiving and seemingly endless cycle of begging and misfortune. There are many ways to help them escape from their plight. For some, it may be food or help stopping an addiction, and for others, it may be a job. But if you feel too busy to talk to them, you should at least donate to any of the hundreds of organizations that want to help.
Put it up for Aya. I think that's our youngest competitor in tonight's heat. Make some noise in the YouTube comments. We've got a lot happening in the chat over here. I bet you wish you were in this Zoom. All right, while you're all giving it up for Aya, judges, I'll get you to put your scores onto your paper and put them up onto my screens in 3, 2, 1. Pop them up there for me. All right, let's have them. Let's see. We have a 7.2, a 7.2, a 7.5, a 7.5, and an 8.0. Let's put our hands back up on those screens. Give it up for Aya. This is a beautiful excuse to come and watch some poetry. If you ask me, I think it's going swimmingly. Don't you? I think so. YouTube, let me know how you're enjoying yourself. What are you doing right now? Do you have snacks? Do you have drinks? Do you have company? I want to know. As does everyone else there with you, I'm sure. All right, we've got another poet coming for you. How amazing! Keeping that poetry coming. Please put your hands together for the next poet who is going to grace your screens. Make some finger noise for Sneha. Sneha, are you there? Can we get a microphone check?
Yeah.
Just give you a little mic check if that's all right.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous.
That's all right. I think your mic's good. So whenever you're ready.
Can I read it out, or should I just close the book or something?
Just jump into the poem whenever you want.
Okay. Dear paper, I wish these words sink into you as much as this ink, to leave an impression, 'cause this is my expression of feelings packed carefully into words. The smooth surface is the mirror, and these lines are the image. This ink is the light, so as I behold this sight, I ask, are you the me that's stuck in the past, or is it the innate shadow that I cast? Do you show the me buried within, or is it the me that I want to present? As I question this, you absorb me patiently, careful to make sure that the ink dries quickly. I wouldn't want a distorted image, would I? You reflect me so there shouldn't be any cracks in my perception or in the facts. So you absorb and absorb and absorb. You capture these strokes as the ink flows, evidence of my rushed excitement. As I pour in this undying passion, in this quest for finding this treasure hidden between the lines of this paper.
Give it up for Sneha and their poem, notebook poem. I love poetry about poetry. All right, YouTube, while you're commenting how much you loved their poem, I will get my judges to get those scores ready. Poets, don't forget to hop over to the YouTube link to get that feedback. That's one of the beauties about online poetry, is that we can actually have a bit of a live feedback positivity going, which is really fun. So we are doing that, judges. I'll get you to pop those scores up on my screen in 3, 2, 1. Pop them up for me. Okie dokie artichoke. I have a 6.8, a 7.3, a 7.3, a 7.8, and an 8.0. Let's give another big round of finger applause for Sneha. Remember, we're applauding the poets and not the scores. Thank you so much for your poem. We've already had 5 poets. Can you imagine that? I feel like we're going too quickly. I don't want the poetry to end. But, you know, if I stopped the poetry, then we wouldn't have more poets. So I'm going to stop waffling and introduce the next competitor of the night. Are we ready for our next competitor? Well, come on, poets. I can see this end. Let's give us some more. That's the way. More energy. All right, please welcome to your screen the next poet, Josephine.
Hello. Can you hear me all right? I am a rock, glazed crystal quartz, brought up in a fiery blow through the sea floor in Devian times. For you, that's 450 million years ago. For me, not that much. You called it the age of fishes, but I think you meant fish-use, crack, cleft, crevice, although there are some fishes fossilized in my parts, crevice. White lines of mineral across my pink, and where it balloons thick and smooth, you held your hand splayed across my heart, and I love the soft glow of ferrous oxide faded. Not like the plastic strips glued to my surface where I have seen lizards skid. And what with words that start with F and C and foo was here. What rising emoji is that? I am here, standing in the yellow straw, hiding cans and bottles and sticky things, when once I was a mountain with seeming forests that grace the streams of my kin, bulging out all around me, and even the crumbling conglomerates herding around my base, and the lines of basalt running in, drilling, near my heart, my nerve ends, an obnoxious whir, no analgesic, no clothes, it stutters. Oh, they've plugged it. Cordite, the acrid, nasty smell. It flares, they run, particles flying, lumps and bumps and pain. I nap and wake under the weight, concrete slurs and gravel sharps, tarmac, squeals or wheels over and above and over, my cracked, dissipated crystals. Oh, can I summon up the fiery depths, pull it up again, erupt again? Can I?
Give it up for Josephine. That love a humorous poet. Had a couple of comments in the chat about loving the humor in the poetry. Of course, I am remaining objective. I'm just saying what the other poets are saying. Josephine, make sure you check out the YouTube link because they're going to be popping lots of comments in the chat, aren't they? And while you're doing that, audience and poets, I want my judges to put their scores down. Scores out of 10, 1 decimal point. You're doing so well. And I just hope that we can continue this really, really smooth relationship that we have going. Judges, in 3, 2, 1, pop your scores up for me. Okie dokie, we have a 7.8, a 7.8, a 7.9, an 8.9, and a 9.6. Let's make some more finger noise for Josephine. Applaud the poet, not the scores. Brilliant, excellent poetry. I love it. I love that you're all here. You're still with us. You're enjoying this as much as me, aren't you? I bet some of you may even be enjoying this more than me. Not that I think that that's possible, but, challenge me on that one. All right, we have one more competitor before we're going to take a little bit of an intermission. So make sure you're paying very close attention to your screen for the next competitor of this evening. Please make some silent noise for Jess. Let's get a mic check, Jess.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Oh, good. Thank you.
Too busy dreaming about flying cars, too busy trying to live on Mars, caught up in myths about who's the best, boastful badges on a proud chest, never stopping to think about the soundproof room that's blocking out the real world. So just assume it's all fine, when in reality it's brutality, no morality, justice sucked up by a vacuum, waiting to be forgotten, just like us, suffering from animal cruelty. I'm a battery hen, like 10 million others. We would be like sisters if we didn't fight each other down to the ground of our cage, where we only have the size of an A4 page to live. We're so frustrated, isolated from treasure we'll never hold, and we're too weak to harm the men who locked our souls away. They hacked off our beaks with white hot blade, like we dripped out with garden spade. They killed our brothers who were unwanted, useless, because they can't lay eggs by the hundreds, gassed them with carbon dioxide, crushed them all alive. Humans are excuseless, ruthless, forcing us to slump on sloping floors, patrolling distant shores, slamming closed open doors. We die like that, staring through the wire, without hope, because when pulled out of magician's hat, we were tainted, twisted, couldn't cope with chronic pain, lost a rope that kept us sane. Now I know I lived in vain. I wonder if there's an outside world, one where I'm not a pawn in a bigger scheme, voiceless. I hope I'll make it there before I'm gone. Just because they act like almighty lords, look upon a dirty sword with pride, doesn't mean they can play God, because humans are better than that. Why continue to play games they're clearly winning at? They can't tear its stitches as they're struggling to beat and throw raw, flawless beauty in muddy ditches. Because humans are better than that. Why continue to play games they're clearly winning at? The short smudge of red that is my life, turning in diagonals, glaring at me in capitals. Then I find out heaven never existed for animals.
We'll give it up for Jess, our other youngest poet in the competition. Put your hands together. Make sure YouTube, you're letting her know what you thought of that poem. What is it with younger poets and just going so hard? Like, preach. All right. On that note, judges, it's time for you to do your job. I'll get you to write those scores down. See if you can score that one. If the car outside will just be quiet for a moment, that'd be great. All right, judges, I'll get those scores up on my screen in 3, 2, 1. Pop them up for me. All right, we have an 8.4, an 8.4, an 8.5, an 8.8, and a 9.3. Pop your hands up again and wiggle those fingers for Jess. Applaud the poet, not the scores. You know, I would not like to be a judge right now because we're halfway through the competition, and I tell you what, I can't call it. I wouldn't want to be a poet either because this competition is tight, and the poetry is amazing, and I'm having a lot of fun. I think my poets on this side are having a lot of fun, and I hope YouTube, you're having a lot of fun as well. On that note, we are going to take just a little bit of a break, a little 5-minute break to give our brains a little bit of room to breathe, really absorb what we've heard so far, get ready for the second round. Georgia, one of our judges, is saying that everyone has been great. I very much agree with her. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Make sure you go and empty or refill your fluid levels. Grab yourself a snack, grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a high five if you've got someone there with you. Have a hug if you're feeling like it. And I will see you all back here in 5 minutes. Don't go too far. Welcome back to the slam, y'all. Just as everyone's settling back in, I'm going to do a little poem just to get us warmed back up again. Don't worry, judges. You don't have to judge this. You can just enjoy it. White kid in a white kitchen, coming from a lineage of white women who refuse to use seasoning in their food. This white tongue knows too well the taste of tough chicken, of boiled Brussels sprouts, of vegetables steamed to sogginess, of steak cooked through so thorough you could chew till the cows come home with it and still not be done, with a palate as pasty as pesto pasta with no toppings, as spicy as 2-minute noodles with the flavor packet left on the bench, as sultry as tomato sauce on Woolies white bread. I was dying of thirst, drinking Moccona coffee to quench my unyielding yearning for salt. She sat me down, and by my hunger I fell into her curry. Cooked weak from my virgin tongue, I lapped it up and came back for more. White kid in a wide, wonderful world. But be warned, for there is one taste I would rather go to my death than willingly ingest. One test I will never face, one herb to which I will never pander. Fucking coriander. Thank you. That is the most politically divisive poem I have ever written. All right, I hope you're all back with us, YouTube. All my poets are back, ready to keep going. We have another 7 poets to compete this evening. Remember, the top 2 are going through to the Australian Poetry Slam National Final. Judges, are we all ready? We all raring to go? We're keeping those scores in the back of our heads, ready to keep being consistent. Seeing a couple of little nods. That's good. All right. I think it's time for our next competitor. What do you think? Are we ready for some more poetry? Oh, come on, poets. Give me more excitement than that. There we go. All right. Let's draw this name from my hat. Please welcome to your Zoom screen, your YouTube screen, the next competitor of the evening. Put it up for Rose.
Can you hear me?
Oh, good.
I am trying to be good. I try to be kind. I try to be empathetic. I try to be warm. But I am struggling to forgive, which I need to do because that is what makes you good. You do not need to be good. You do not need to turn the other cheek when the other one is still stinging. You do not need to keep revisiting the confessional booth, begging for forgiveness because you yourself cannot forgive. And you still have a wrath deep within your belly like a fire that struggles to be quashed, a fire you want to spread, a fire. I think God knows I am not all the way saved because after turning a cheek, I have nothing left to turn because my cheeks are still stinging and you keep striking. I am not crying over spilt milk. I think it is easy to advise to turn the other cheek when it is not your blood being spilled. And I don't think my blood should be regarded as milk. So I think I'm allowed to cry. But in my prayers, I sometimes defiantly ask, God, did you even try to forgive Satan? And I know the answer. So if I am made in the image of God, why do I need to forgive? Because you didn't. So I'm led to believe you do not need to forgive. Grudges may be a sin, but the tears they have caused you are what will bathe you clean. So in my confession next time, I hope I am told to love because I have done enough loving, but never for myself. Next time when I confess about the wrath in my belly and the burn from the cheek from when you've slapped me, I hope I am told, but child, you are asking for forgiveness and yet you have not sinned. And if your wrath it is a sin, it's okay because you are not all the way saved. So the next time I will love myself first. And if I'm slapped again, I will turn my cheek, but I will not turn again because I have given up on trying to be good.
Give it up for Rose from an objective standpoint. Oofed. Let me see those hands. YouTube, you better be making all those comments. Bring that energy all the way back for that poem. Judges, we're back in it. You know what you have to do. You're already ready to do your job. Let me get those scores in just a second. Wait for it. Hold. Ready? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Pop them on my screens for me. All right, I have an 8.1, an 8.2, an 8.3, a 9.1, and a 9.3. Put your hands back up onto the screen for Rose. Applaud the poet, not the scores. YouTube, let her know what you thought of that poem. All right, are we ready for our next competitor of the evening? I think you are. You better be. Let's make some silent noise up on the screen. YouTube, get your fingers ready for the next poet of the competition. Give it up for Megan.
Hey, mic check.
Oh, good.
Awesome. Content warning, mothers, aging, and end of life. You were a maternal megalith. A rock that stood triumphant against the turbulent sky, a rock that hid me from the storms in overhanging shelters and rocked me to sleep in cozy caves with comfortable corners. A sacred rock, singing me stories, hewn with child-sized steps for climbing. With you as my foundation, I could reach ever greater heights. So if you feel small now that your peaks and troughs lie empty and your baby birds have grown and flown the nest, know that it's only so you can collapse to form a diamond at your core. The essence of who you are is so precious, not only because you were once my rock, but because you shine so unexpectedly brightly, and there's nothing left to do but be lustrous. So if in your shrinking and wrinkling, you think that you have become a burden too heavy to be carried, know that you have condensed only so you fit, twinkling in my hand. Not a burden, never a burden, but a gift, small enough to be lifted. And if you feel weather beaten now, these years of laughter and tears eroding gullies on your face, know that those lines were a map for me, And I collected every grain that washed away and built myself in your mountainous image, a matriarchal monument rising with the sun. So in the morning, let me mother you. I can make a niche for you upon a ridge, a home to watch your final sunset from. And when you finally return to dust, your spirit lifting with the mist, I'll scatter you among the sand.
Give it up for Megan and that very heartfelt poem. Put your hands up on your screens. YouTube, get those comments going for Megan's poem. Thank you so much for sharing that while you're checking out the YouTube comments. Judges, I think you know what I'm about to ask for, don't you? All right, let's get those scores. Let's get them ready. Let's get them up on the screen in 3, 2, 1, go. I'm sorry. All right. We have a 7.8, a 7.8, a 7.8, an 8.6, and a 9.1. Let's get those hands going again. Applaud those words, not the numbers. Thank you so much, Megan. Remember, this is just an elaborate excuse to get y'all to a poetry reading, and it's working, isn't it? You're still here. You want to hear some more poetry? I know you want to hear some more poetry. Let's get our next poet up on the screen, shall we? All right, let me pick out the random draw poets. Oh, someone's already got their hands wiggling ready. I like your energy. All right, please make some silent noise. Welcome to your screen, the next poet, Matt.
Can you hear me?
Oh, good, thank you.
When I was young, I built a metropolis, a sprawling cityscape with a welcoming populace. I scavenged for Lego, for cardboard and glue, and out of the ground, this new world grew. The pieces didn't technically fit together. There was a lot of blue tack thrown in for good measure, but altogether they did their job to transform some shoddily drawn figures into a community. And in my naivety, the ideality of this space meant that everybody had a place. There wasn't a privileged area or group still mending from history's error, no matter your race, creed, or orientation, your gender, or even your original nation. Everyone was equal and able to have a seat at this table. But as I grew up, things started to shift. The real world moved in and started causing some rifts. All the strong Lego moved to the top of the hill, leaving flimsy paper towns to foot the bill. Those hilltoppers built their own Parliament House, a place that was meant to protect all from droughts of equality, that would pit you against me and draw a schism through our society. But in fact, it did the complete opposite. It turned my metropolis into a monopolist, pulling the people away from the moderate and protecting self-interests of the conglomerate. This perspective down the side of hill bled to the ragtag crumbling houses instead, turning neighbours and friends from important lifelines to a new destructive focus on whether that was mine. But rather than working together against cause, the people divided and started their wars, missing what was happening just up the hill, where their futures were sold for not even a mill, but amongst all that fighting, there was a single voice. It saw all of this was just a choice. The more people they told, it broke the spell, revealing the truth to a bigger groundswell that life could be better, that exclusion and division weren't something to weather, that caring about all could be the red letter day, that there was a new way. And so the new fight began today. That original world was something we all saw when we were young and tradition hadn't yet roared, removing the memory of what we had seen and allowing us to settle for what had always been. But now the power's in my hands, in our hands, to reshape what's around us to a new plan. So the kids of the future are not only free, but that original world they see, that's their reality.
Give it up for Matt and his poem. Put your hands up. YouTube, I hope you'll still have that energy going. I will be coming in. I'll be checking on you in a second. But make some typing noise for Matt and his poem while y'all are doing that, while he's checking out what you've said. Judges, you know what I'm about to ask for. I keep trying to think of unique, interesting, original ways to ask for the scores, but I think I'm running out. There are just too many poets, too many good poets competing tonight. So I will get your scores without further ado in 3, 2, 1. Pop them up on my screen for me. All right, we have a 7.6, a 7.9, an 8.0, an 8.2, and an 8.4. Let's get another big round of Zoom applause for Matt. Applaud those words. I like the intertextual Lego theme in your APS poems, Matt. Made me grin. All right, are we ready for the next competitor? We've only got a handful left, but I think it's gonna keep being pretty good. So, without further ado, let me draw my next competitor's name from my hat over off screen over here. I hope you're all ready for our next competitor. Please make a lot of exciting, energetic, welcoming visual noise for the next competitor of the evening. It's Akon.
Just mic check.
Oh, good.
Lord, I pray to you like my mother prays to you with the Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. But I try cutting her off like I always do, because prayer to me does not work. I have carried this world on my shoulder as she laid it upon me. She left war and land that she believed in, carried me here where she thought that I would have faith. She tells me, my child, pray to me. Pray with me, because the Lord is the only way. But how can I tell her that, God, you have forsaken me? You have let my father watch me lay right there. You have let his hands touch me in ways that he should have not. How can I let him? How could you let me? So she tells me, my child, hold the rosemary as we pray. Like each prayer would take me closer to you, but it has not. As I find my own light, my own way, because Father, you have forsaken me. Like how you have forsaken everyone else. How everyone prays to you, but you just seem not to answer. Like how everyone praises your name, but your name just seems like it's just a forgotten word. So I pray to you again. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. But I slit my tongue and hold my throat because I just do not want to say your name no more. So Father, forgive me. Forgive my sins and forgive the world. But how could you if you have not forgiven yourself? Maybe hell is my place to be.
Or make some noise for Akon and her poem. Put him up, put those hands, fingers wiggling. YouTube, make sure you're commenting what you thought of her poem. Loving the resistant religious themes running through tonight. All right, while you're all absorbing that poem, judges, I want you to write 3 little numbers on your piece of paper, equating to a score out of 10, and put them up on my screen in just a moment. Just let's take a moment to appreciate this moment before we get the scores. All right, in 3, 2, 1, pop those scores up for me. All right, we have a 7.2, a 7.7, a 7.8, an 8.2, and an 8.5. All right, let's give another big round of applause for Akon and her poem. Remember, we're here for the poetry. The scores are just an extra bit. All right, we've got a little comment in the chat on this side saying that it's such a close call, and Megan has no concept of who might win. And I agree. Tonight is just good poem after good poem. This is a pretty great heat, in my opinion, and I've been to a few. All right, are we ready for the next competitor of the night? Poets on this side, I want to see you bringing that energy back up for the next performer. Are we ready? All right, please welcome to your screen, Sarah. Just get a quick unmute.
Yep, I'm unmuted.
Oh, good. We can hear you.
Excellent. I just want to give a content warning before I start this. There's battle and death and anti-religion and some mediocrity in there as well. So so I'll just give that before I start. History is our inconvenient truth. Erased from history, erased from his story, her story, their story, our story. God save the king! Proclaimed on ancient lands, continually dreaming, long before this monodeity was a thing. Inequality rises. We hear the whisper of the guillotine as they shout, let them eat cake! The 1% should take heed. The peasants' revolt followed the Black Death. Narrow, myopic quips about glory and death ignorantly ignore ignoble retreats and the strength of womenfolk patching up their men and country. Battle madness, death, dismembered, shell-shocked. For what end? Sabre-rattling, phallic follies. And yet, still they beat the drums of war. The audacity and veracity of our capacity to ignore what has gone before slips soothsayers into state, leaving virtues prostrate. There is no prognostication in this nation of hindsight heroes, content to watch history unfurl, rather than let history foretell. History is our inconvenient truth. I suggest that if reading history makes you comfortable, perhaps you're partaking in propaganda. For there, between the myths and lines, is the blood, sweat, and tears of those that built the roads and pyramids of the ancient world, the first astronomers and bakers of the First Nations, and the scoundrels just trying to get by. For those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat, 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 repeat.
Give it up for Sarah. Put your hands up on those screens for me. YouTube comments, let her know what you thought of that poem. I agree. Guillotine the billionaires. Not to be political on Maine. Yeah, get those comments going. Sarah, as you check those out, judges, you know it's your time to shine. I want those scores up on my screen in 3, 2, 1. Prop them up for me. All right, we have a 7.1, a 7.2, a 7.6, a 7.8, and an 8.1. Let's get those hands back up on the screens for another round of applause for Sarah. Wiggle your fingers if you agree there should be no billionaires. Everyone's who not wiggling your fingers. All right, I'm going to move away from that politics and on to the next poet. Do you know we only have 2 poets left to perform? I don't want the poetry to end yet. I'm really enjoying this. I think this is an excellent heat, but we need to keep going, don't we? The event must go on. So without further ado, please welcome the second last competitor of tonight. Put your hands up and make some wiggling fingers for Coralie.
Mic check.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Pandemic anxiety. Please remove me immediately from this reality. I no longer want to be here anymore. Empathy. We are all not coping. My uncle died and I want to see him again. I talked to Dad over Viber about an extended family get-together. One day, he says, but it won't be the same without Uncle, I say, and he tears up. His indestructibility, the norms of my culture that held my parents together are no longer relevant. It's not the same. Nothing will ever be the same. Please remove me from this lockdown. I no longer want to be here anymore. My daughter, her friends, her darling friends. It took them a week of anxiety-riddled texts to organise a walk. They don't like me anymore, she said. I promise you, it's just lockdown. It distorts your reality. Just go on the walk and everything will be okay. Single mum, I cry alone in my room so she can't see me, so she can't mirror me, but it's too late. Please remove me immediately from this reality. My role modelling is sketchy right now. I was triggered. Me and him, it was supposed to work out, but then he got sick and my anxiety flared up, burst like a balloon. How can I feel so affected by someone I only just met? We never even touched. We sat opposite each other in a park. We spoke on the phone for hours about when lockdown ends, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we told our parents about each other, even though it was too soon because we're both Greek and we never dated Greeks except for our first loves. And he promised to act in ways that wouldn't hurt me, and I promised to act in ways that wouldn't hurt him. But in the end, we both tripped. The pandemic squeezing us at both ends. Please remove me immediately from this reality. The man I care about is sick and won't communicate with me. And I'm stuck in my home trying to keep the faith, trying to apply my advice to save myself and my daughter. When I can't anymore, I write poems to try and excavate myself from the childhood conditionings in my brain. So when I emerge, I can finally be something, someone less anxious, precious, someone that appreciates every moment, like a hug from an uncle that I may or may not have had at my sister's wedding of 100 people that happened by some miracle where there were no cases and no masks and we danced like we'd never danced before. My pandemic anxiety, I won't let you take my moments anymore. I sit with you in my apartment determined to defeat you.
Give it up for that extraordinarily relatable poem. Put your fingers wiggling. Thank you, Coralie. Make sure you check out the YouTube comments because y'all are still commenting on there. I hope I'll be checking in you on a moment. All right, judges, for Coralie's poem, let's get those scores up. This is probably your second last time doing your job. All right, get those scores up on the screen in 3, 2, 1. Pop them up for me. Okay, we have a 7.2, a 7.3, a 7.8, a 7.9, and an 8.0. Let's get another big round of applause happening for Coralie and her poem. Thank you so much for reading that. Also, shout out to Dan Andrews for finally letting us outside. Thank you, Mr. Andrews. All right, are we ready? We have one competitor left. They know who they are. You're about to find out. Are we ready for the last competitor of the Victorian final? Got a couple. Let's go in the chat over here. All right. Let's take a moment. Let's get ourselves ready. Final competitor. Let's put those hands up. Please welcome to your screen, Travis.
Can you hear me?
Oh, good.
You're a chicken. You're a cowardly, craven, useless milksop. I mean, a weak-willed, lily-livered, wishy-washy, namby-pamby. A faint-hearted, feeble, gutless wonder. A spineless, silent, shrinking violet. And those are your good points. It is said the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing, and you excel at that. Top of your class when it comes to holding your tongue and passing the buck. An Academy Award for fence-sitting, pussyfooting doublespeak. A Nobel Prize for cover-ups, false fronts, and window dressing. None are so blind as those who will not see. The bystander. That's your degree. Fully aware, yet you choose to be blind and block up your ears so you never will hear nor see the victim's tears. You put out a statement deflecting the blame, protecting the powerful. That is your game. Silence the accuser, protect the abuser, and now your moral compass is smashed in pieces on the floor. There will come a day when the tables will turn and the truth will reveal the efforts you made to hide and conceal. Cowardice exposed, the lies you composed when you knew all along what was right, what was wrong. There will come a day when all that is hidden will be revealed and all that is secret will be made known. And we wait. We wait for that day.
Give it up for Travis and his poem. I want to package that up and send it to Scott Morrison. All right, let's make some finger noise, YouTube. You know that you're still commenting away. Get that feedback, get that encouragement going. Now, judges, I have to say, first and foremost, I am so proud of each and every one of you for doing such an incredible judging job tonight, for being so prompt on all of the scores. And now I have one final request for you. I would like your scores out of 10 with 1 decimal point for Travis's poem. I want you to write those on your pieces of paper and put those up to my screen in 5, 2, 1. Pop them up for me. All right, I have a 7.9, an 8.1, an 8.1, an 8.2, and an 8.6. Let's get those hands back up for Travis. Give another big round of applause. Applaud the poet, not the scores. This is a very elaborate excuse for a brilliant poetry reading. Now, I have some sad news and some good news. The sad news is that all of our competitors have performed. That is, all 14 poets have brought their poems to you. They've all been judged by our brilliant judges, and now the backstage crew are going to collaborate, add them all up, do the maths, check if there are any time penalties. So that's the sad news, that the competition is done. The good news is we have a feature poet for you. It's going to do a little bit of a set, just a short couple of poems to fill in this little bit of time while our backstage folks are doing the maths. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our feature to the screen. Please put your hands up for the one, the only, me. Oh, I make myself laugh. Her mouth to my tit. I got a hit of dysphoria. Wouldn't have told her, but the tears came where I couldn't. Wouldn't have mattered so much, her taking pleasure from my memories, but these fat sacks weren't meant to be. So I told her, I said, I'll just cut them off. But my brain said, you should love the only body that you've got. It's the only body you've been given. And what if you're not forgiven? What if you can't save yourself? What if you end up worse off than you could have been? What if I chase the wrong dream, write the wrong poem, date the wrong girl? What if I change and I don't like what I get? And I'm stuck with the metal taste of regrets and the reverberating repetition of every doubt I didn't do due diligence to in self-mandated midnight therapy sessions where I was both the learner and the lesson, overthinking decisions that I'll never even make. I always take the tea bag out too late, so I don't take it out too early and miss a better taste. So I'm stuck drinking second best New York breakfast. And I always thought my biggest fear was to fail. But now I realize I'm less fearful of failure and more afraid of failing at the wrong thing. I said I always thought my biggest fear was to fail. Now I realize I'm less fearful of failure. I'm more afraid of failing at the wrong thing. I've been willfully whittling away the hours, wasting time I could have used to make mistakes, saving words I could have put on empty page, brewing tea when I could have just been drinking it. So take me, hand in tit, and let me be reckless. Let me tattoo my own narrative in red letters on my chest. Let me aim for the best and fail with pride. Let me fight when I don't know how to win. Let me take life on the chin and always show my fear. Let me be happy as in queer and proud as in gay. Let me drink weak tea and speak when I don't know what to say. Let me not know what to do. And let me do it anyway. Poetry, yeah. Well, I've got another one for you. And I performed this a year ago at the exact same event. And oh yeah, it came first. So I have to fill in all the sound where y'all would be applauding in real life. I haven't done a live gig in like 2 years. There's a content warning in this one for religion. I have a God in my head. Like a George Orwell live reenactment, I know that God is always watching, and he will always know. And Jesus loves me, this I know. I have a God in my head. I met him before I could make memories. My first lullaby stitched his melody into my safety net, and he moved into my mind before I even knew it had a door. But it's okay, for the Bible tells me so. There is a God in my head, and I am too afraid to think for fear that any thought might be a sin. I blocked my conscience because I couldn't control it. Played my lullaby, turned compulsion, turned comfort to cover up the loud, to cover up the little ones to him belong. The God in my head was gifted to me as idol. No other thing before him, not even me, not even my breath, not even this poem. My God, Ghost wrote this poem. My God, Ghost wrote my life. I am weak, but he is strong. I gave God an eviction notice. I found the door to this temple and I stormed it. My brain tried to barricade against my blasphemy, so I burned the whole thing down, took my God into the ashes and begged him to leave my mind be. In the dust of my false deity, I found peace. In the absence of my lullaby, I learned that I was never weak. In the holy silence left behind, I finally heard myself think. I come from stardust, from grains of sand scattered across the expanse of all that is known and all that is not. I am not disconnected from this dance of death and resurrection, the rise of the moon and the pull of tide and time and tapestry intricately interwoven into the constellation of self. I used to think I came from nothing, that I was the consequence of a linear timeline and an absent God, a mere footnote in the book of life that predestined my end and my beginning before I even began, a puppet made prophet, pulled parallel to myself, preaching death and division of the divine from the disobedient. I only mattered if I was obedient. I was a disobedient child, kept on permanent probation, hoping to hold out long enough till death decides if I am destined to be ejected out of heaven, playing puppet to my parents' God in fear of disconnection, but the stars do not exist for me to disconnect from them. This carefully constructed collection of celestial self is intricately interwoven into the constellation of all that is known and all that is not. I am not disconnected. I am stardust. All right, give it up for our feature, Andy Stewart. Oh, thank you so much, Andy. You're so very welcome, Andy. I love your poetry. I love your hosting. Look at that. All right, let's stop talking to myself and get back to the slam. I bet you're all waiting to find out who the winners are, who will be going through to the national final are. And I have some very exciting news for y'all. We have a tie. We have a tie, which means we have a slam off. I love a slam off. Do you all know what a slam off is? So we have a tie for second place, which means that the two poets, I'm just going to tell you so they have time to prepare for it in a moment. Rose and Harpreet, I hope you have an extra poem saved. You can use poems that you've used in previous heats for this because it's a slam off. So in a moment, we're going to be getting both of those poets up for a slam off. They're both going to perform another poem. Judges, turns out that your job isn't over. You've got another two poems to judge. So I'm just going to keep talking for a second as we prepare. As those poets prepare, I'm going to write down their names on my paper that I have just to my side, to the side, so that I can randomly draw them out of a hat. So I've got the names written down. I'm just going to tear that piece of paper and fold them up. I know a slam off. Slam offs are so exciting. I've been in a slam off before. I had to slam off in both 2018 and 2019 to get to the Australian Poetry Slam. It was all very exciting. I can tell you that. It's very nerve-wracking to be the poets who are in this. So I'll just get a show of a thumbs up from both of my slamming poets. Are we ready to go? Rose and Harpreet. Harpreet, we ready to go? If we've got a yeah. All right. I've got your names here. This is all very exciting. I haven't had a slam off this APS season yet. So I've got a shaking here, and let's go. Whichever name falls onto the desk will be our first performer. Oh no, they both fell. Well, this one's closer, so going this one first. All right, YouTube, I hope you're still with us. I hope you're getting that energy back up. Not often we have a slam off, but it does make it extremely extra exciting. So, first poet off the block for this extra special edition of the Victorian APS final. Please welcome back to your screens with lots of finger wiggling and lots of comments. Bring it. Welcome to the screen, Rose.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. 10. Beloved. Noun. A person who was greatly loved. When I was born, my mother counted all 10 of my fingers and all 10 of my toes. When I was a child, my mother taught me how to count to 10. I am now an adult. I can count to 10. I can count how many times my mother has said I love you on only one hand. So it seems I do not need my other hand. I do not need my other hand to count. I do not need my 5 fingers. I do not have to learn how to count to 10 because that is a meaningful number and I have not received meaningful love. So why do I need to be able to count to 10? I do not need my hand the way I don't need my mother's love because I can survive without it. I can survive this way, but that is not truly living, is it? The nurse said you only need breast milk and love to give a child, but I cannot remember the taste of the milk that nurtured me. I cannot remember the feeling of being loved because I do not know that feeling of what it feels to be your mother's beloved. Every year, Mother's Day arrives and I still don't know the date. Every year, I hope my relationship with my mother does not stay the same. Apathy, noun. Lack of interest, enthusiasm, or concern. It is better to be hated than to be treated apathetically because I have learned the way I have learned how to count to 10, that at least your adversary cares if you cry. But to feel your mother's silence when you're begging for her to say, I love you, is much worse. Every year, Mother's Day arrives and I still don't know the date. Every year, I hope my relationship with my mother does not stay the same. And it hasn't, because she cries for another home that she fled for me. And I didn't know that that has always made me her beloved. And this year it has changed because she has said, I love you twice. And that is getting closer to 10.
Give it up for Rose and her second slam off poem. Got all those fingers wiggling. YouTube, get those comments going. This is an extra special, extra poetry that you get. How exciting. I'm loving this. All right. Well, you'll sharing all the comments. See some coming in on the Zoom. Judges, I hope you're back with me and I hope you have your paper ready because I want you to give me your scores again. How exciting. We get to work together again. I love this. All right, judges. All right, I'll get those scores up in 3, 2, 1. Pop them on my screens for me. All right, I have an 8.2, an 8.2, an 8.5, an 8.7, and a 9.2. Let's get another big round of applause for Reed Rose's slamming slam off poem. All right, we know who's next. You know who's next. They know who's next. Let's just get them right up onto our screens, shall we? Please welcome to the Zoom YouTube stage your second slam offerer, Harpreet.
My truth is one that took years to unfold. Amnesia wiping away the memories before my 10th birthday, the day where they say you see wonders untold, where you go to bed with a smile so bold. That's before I saw through the haze and realized smiles don't last. Mental scars of that day still haunts me. The vile, bitter smell of Red Bull still assaulting my nostrils. His maniacal laughter sounding violently as if it were tinnitus frizzling away at my eardrums. Him reaching my bed and etching a nightmare into my mind. That was the night my innocence was taken. Hatred turns into self-hatred, and self-hatred turns into self-doubt, and self-doubt turns into a muted symphony. A muted symphony is created when Boys Will Be Boys takes over a victim's life, convincing them to forget their pain because no one really cares. Who would care about a muted symphony? The pain of the past can't be shriveled away. Attitudes of society can't just sway. I'm not asking for my pain to be relieved. I just want to be believed. I want people to see me as a human rather than taking one glance at me and deciding that I now identify as an object, that dignity shouldn't be thrown lower than the ground itself, that victims aren't survivors because they aren't talking about their experiences. They can't. There's no time, there's no place for people like us. There's no platform for people like us who just crave attention. There's no platform for useless freaks. I'm done being weak. There's only one thing I seek, to let people learn no doesn't mean go, no means no. Muted symphonies, sounding loudly, only attuned to deaf ears, till the day society makes changes and the unmute button of our muted symphonies can finally be fixed.
All right, give it up for Harpreet and their slamming poem. Thank you so much for sharing your words, Harpreet. Just some really, really good poetry tonight. The entire event, honestly, I'm so proud of all the poets. Like, I don't know if I have the right to be proud, but I'm so proud of y'all. But as the comments are going off in the Zoom, they better be going off in the YouTube as well. Judges, this is your final time unless we tie again. Please don't. Judges, get those scores ready. Get them on your pieces of paper and wait. Let's draw out this last time. Ready in 3, in 2, in 1. Bring those scores up to the screen for me. All right, we have a 7.9, an 8.0, an 8.5, an 8.9, and another 8.9. Let's get those hands wiggling for Harpreet and his poem. Get that silent applause going. Now, as the poets, the backstage team are just going to do a quick little calculation. And while they're doing that, I need to let you all know that on the 28th of November, put that date down in your calendar right now. That is the date of the national final. So this is also going to be online. So everyone around Australia can tune in. On the 28th of November will be the Australian Poetry Slam national final. Now, still waiting for those scores to come through. So just got to build that suspense. Did you know that there was only 0.01 of a point of a difference between the first place and the 2 second places? So really, the judges, you're walking that fine line tonight. But also, how well have our judges done tonight? How amazing have they been? The judges, honestly, I'm proud of each and every one of you. I feel like we're kindred spirits. Judges, I feel like we're just really deep friends now. YouTube, how has your night been? I hope that you've been enjoying yourself. I hope you've been enjoying yourself even half as much as I have, because I've been having a blast. Been having a great time. While I'm still waiting, I want to give a shout out to my mate Juno, because I'm actually at my friend's house right now, because my housemate is a close contact of a COVID case. So about a couple of hours ago, I had to race to a testing center and then race over to my friend's house so I could set this up and host it for you. So let's give a big round of applause for my friend Juno for letting me hop onto their Wi-Fi. Let's keep those applause going for the Word Travels team, because the Australian Poetry Slam is run by the brilliant the Word Travels team. So we've got Miles Merrill as the head of that. We've got a whole bunch of brilliant people working for them, and that's the team who brings us the Australian Poetry Slam every year, which brings us so many brilliant poets from all around the country. I know that I personally have a lot to be grateful for Word Travels, because they brought my name out into the poet sphere. As I'm doing my thank yous, I want to give a big thank you to the State Library of Victoria. The Victorian Library network system organization works with word travels to bring you all of the heats, the workshops, and this final. It's with them that we've been able to have such a brilliant season of Victorian poetry. Oh no. It's a tie. Oh, it's another tie. Oh. What do we do? I think we have to do another slam. Harpreet doesn't have another poem. Well, Harpreet, do you have another poem that you performed at the Heat? I can't. Unfortunately, we can't send all three through. If it was up to me, I would send all three of them through. This is unprecedented. We've never had this happen before. Judges, come on, you got to call it. All right, we're just going to take a moment where I am going to locate both of my poets on my screen. Give me a visual indicator, Rose and Harpreet. Do we have poems that we can bring? You're very much allowed to use the ones that you performed at the Heats.
Maybe.
Because I know, Rose, you have one that you performed at the Heat that I haven't heard tonight.
Oh, I do. I forgot.
Yeah. You want to bring that one out? Harpreet, do you have one? You want to? Yes.
Can I have a minute to
yeah, I'm gonna do another poem. How about this? We're gonna drag this event out, and Andy, don't know if you've heard of Andy Stewart. He's gonna do a poem for you. What poem should we do? Let's see. Let's do a poem that I did 2 years ago at the Opera House, which is quite topical for the moment. Two ties. This just goes to show the caliber of Victorian poetry. Unfortunately, I can't let anyone but the judges vote. But judges, I'm watching you. But I've stopped watching the news. Call it apathy or call it indifference. But the daily trauma on my TV, it's turned my heart heavy. So I've stopped watching the news. It's easy to scroll a blind eye through Facebook feeds oversaturated with suffering. I've started only picking battles I've got bullet wounds from. I nurse the stitches in the safety of my own home as bombs go off in my neighbor's house, and I call it self-care. I call it impossible choice. I call it not my place, not my people, not my problem. I've stopped watching the news, kept comfortable in my disregard. I didn't see the cracks forming in my driveway, but I tripped over a racist on the way out and fell face first into a mirror that murmured, "Looking away is a privilege." I stubbed my toe on street corner kids pounding placards, pleading, "Looking away is a privilege." I did my duty in the ballot box, but I burned my hands on the way out, shielding my eyes from dead women wailing. Looking away is a privilege. I've started seeing death on every corner. And I can't shake this feeling that we measured up our rights in action and apathy and declared it more important than your right to life and liberty. More important than your right to death and breath in dignity. Looking away is a privilege that we don't have time for. So I've turned on the news and I've stopped looking away. I've stopped looking away. Stop. Well, there's a poem for you. That got me second place for the second year in a row. We've got a couple of comments happening in our Zoom chat. Megan Reel is saying 3 ties and we'll just have to come back and do it all again tomorrow. She's also saying, let's have a moment of appreciation from the judges for avoiding score creep. I'm very proud of all the judges tonight. I've got a bigger job than you signed up for, don't you? You have to do another slam off. I have never been in a slam that has had a second slam off before. We're making APS history right now. And what better poets to do it with? Rose and Harpreet, are we ready for a second slam off? We good? Yes? Harpreet, yeah. Look, let's see what happens. This is unplanned for, but look, we're Victorians. We're all about just riding with the unexpected by this point, aren't we? We're very used to just, oh, look, a name fell out of my hand. I'm going to stop waffling on. And we're going to do, hopefully, the last slam off of this evening. Are we ready? Are we ready for the final poetry performances of tonight? Judges, I hope you're ready. The other poets are ready. YouTube, wake up, ready for our last couple of poets. All right. Please welcome back to the stage for the third time this evening, the first of our slam offerers, Harpreet.
Just a content warning. This one contains mental health themes. Deep down inside, no, I'm trying. Deep down inside, I know I'm crying. Unspoken, lingering, they know I'm lying. The fake smile on my face stays put undying. It's getting worse. And horrifying. Days come closer and closer. The days are becoming worse and worse. Gradually the hope builds up, making me think that I'm free, making me hope that I'm free, making me yearn for my freedom until the light begins to flee and the darkness drowns all hope, and in the end it always comes back. Disarm the ticking bomb, stop the thoughts. I scream, I lie, I yell, I cry. Stop the yelling, stop the screaming, stop the beating. Please stop, make it stop. Calm the tearing eyes, calm the shaking hands, hide it all with the long sleeves you wear. Bite your lip and carry on. Stop. Force the smile on your face, let it embrace you once more. The fake smile is only there for show, they already know. Dry the tears, hide the stains, ignore the jeers, keep it hidden behind the chains. Keep it together, don't let it return, no reason to be upset, just smile. Keep feeding yourself the lies. How long can you hide the pain? How long can you hold it in? How long until you snap? Let the tears flow out, drop your head and fall to your knees. Scream, yell, screech, let it all out. Once the pain is left, of hope you shall be bereft. Numbness will flood, just hide the blood, wear the long sleeve, and carry on with the act. After all, a porcelain doll can't be cracked. A cracked doll is intact. Carry on with the act and you'll be fine. Carry on with the act, carry on with the act, carry on with the act, and you will be fine.
I give it up for Harpreet performing another poem that they didn't expect to perform. Let's get those fingers wiggling. Let's get YouTube. Let's keep that energy going as my judges come back again to do the thing that they didn't think that they would be asked to do. But I will get those scores up on my screen in 3, 2, 1. Give me them scores, judges. All right, we have a 7.6, a 7.8, an 8.0, an 8.3, and a 9.1. Let's get that big round of applause going. Keep that energy going. Remember, this is just an elaborate excuse to get you to see some poetry, and it's working because you're seeing more poetry than you thought you would. All right, we have one more poet this evening. Hopefully. We've got one more performer. You know who they are. They know who they are. Please wiggle your fingers up on your screens for the last poet of the evening, Rose.
Content warning, suicide ideation. For tomorrow, I say I dream of. You are full. Belly to the brim of warmth and fullness, eyes clear with clarity and sparkle. Your face is no longer a ghost of smiling lines and joy because you are alive and smile now. And it is so new and different from starvation, from feeling desolate inside that you make your stomach match because it has been pumped out. It is a far cry from your constant cries that soaked bedroom pillows. It is a far cry from the realization your skin can turn to gray when you fill your belly with many, many pills, so that you are full of gluttony. I am greedy for seeing the afterlife that doesn't want to see me. I want to leap and hound into the unknown, because the unknown is better than what I know, and what I know is despair. But this joy I speak of has not come to me yet. I am waiting. I am waiting. I am waiting. I did not say patiently, but I realized pills can be thrown up and bellies pumped. People can interrupt you while you hoist the noose up. Jumps are scary, razors are sharp, alcohol poisons mothers well. If the attempt fails, you may ail. Knives hurt, gunshots are loud. You still fight the air even when you try to drown. So do I. You really want to die, so I lived instead. I did not say goodbye. I'll see you all tomorrow.
Give it up for Rose and her third poem of the evening. Oh, brilliant, brilliant poets. Thank you both so much for showing up and just keeping on bringing us that poetry. YouTube, let Rose know how much you liked her third poem. And while you're doing that, judges, this is your final time. You know it's your final time. You know that you're going to bring the scores. You're not going to give us another slam off. Please. Please bring up those scores in 3, 2, 1. Bring up those scores to the screen. All right, we have a 7.3, an 8.1, an 8.1, an 8.5, and an 8.9. Let's give another big round of finger wiggles for Rose and her third poem. Now, just as our backstage team are doing the little bit of maths, the little bit of score collation, I want to give a big thank you to our sponsors, because Word Travels and this poetry, the thing that we do is we go to our funding people and we say, poetry is a great thing. We love poetry. And they say, yes, poetry is a great thing. And they give us the funding to be able to keep doing this. So big shout out to the New South Wales government through the Create New South Wales Fund, and also to the Copyright Agency. Thank you to the Copyright Agency. And also to the Australian government through the Rise Fund. Thank you to our funders for helping us continue this beautiful poetry community and competition. You know, every year I've been to the Australian Poetry Slam a couple of times, and I can tell you it is one of the most amazing experiences that I've had. And it's taught me so much. It's given me so much opportunity, and really. The Australian Poetry Slam is a beautiful thing, and I have my runner-up. I've had my little private message, so I'm not gonna keep you waiting. I'm not gonna keep waffling on. Without further ado, please wiggle your fingers, bring those comments in for our runner-up of the Victorian Poetry Final. Rose is our second place getter. And finally, I can also announce the winner of tonight. The winner of tonight going with Rose to the Australian Poetry Slam National Final. Give it up for Jess. Jess is our winner of tonight's slam. I had to sit on that one for a little bit. So yeah, congratulations to Harpreet for coming third this evening. Amazing job, friend. 3 poems. That's not what you were expecting. And Rose and Jess, congratulations. You are both progressing to the Australian Poetry Slam National Final on the 28th of November. I will be there. I will be cheering on the Zoom. But let's also give a massive round of applause, finger wiggle, for all of the poets who performed tonight. Amazing job. Congratulations. You all did amazingly. I am so proud of every single one of you. I loved hearing all of your words. I'm hoping to be able to see you all out in Melbourne when we're able to go out to gigs again. Keep your eyes on the Melbourne Spoken Word Facebook page for the gigs. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone. This has been an extra special event tonight. This has given us more than any of us thought. And make sure you come along on the 28th of November to the Australian Poetry Slam National Final. Keep your eye on the website, on their Facebook page for all the details to see our Victorian champions, Rose and Jess, compete for the national final to hopefully let's get a Victorian second and first this year. How about that? Let's get Victoria second and first. I think that'll be excellent. All right, YouTube, you have been amazing. Thank you so much for coming into the stream and watching and sticking with us and cheering on all of our poets. Thank you to all the poets, the judges, and the Word Travels team in the Zoom. You've all been amazing. And thank you to our sacrificial poet and feature, Andy Stewart. Oh, Andy, thank you too. You've been great. No, you've been great, Andy. All right. I'm going to keep wiggling my fingers as we finish off the night. Please stay safe, stay warm, stay cool. Actually, it's getting quite hot out there. Stay vaccinated, stay masked. You've all been amazing. Have a brilliant rest of your Friday night. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. We've all been watching from our couches. You've all been amazing. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.